If you are an intermediate player looking to play sharper, more tactical chess, but keep missing massive attacking wins, I've got a concept that will completely change the way you scan the board. Today, I'm going to show you how to identify tactical weaknesses in chess. First of all, it's worth noting that in chess, materials with greater value tend to be easier to harass. Think of it like this. If two materials with equal value see each other, there's always an option to ignore the tension by guarding, but if one side's material is higher valued, they cannot afford the trade anymore. The consequence of getting harassed involves not only losing tempo, but also losing control of certain squares. Take this Grunfeld position as an example. Here, black played the move d5, and white decides to move the same material twice, but in return, he gets to play the move e4. And after e4, the knight is harassed, and black cannot afford the trade of a knight with a pawn, so he has to take. And after white recaptures, they have not only regained their tempo, but also neutralized black's control over the d5 square. Now, if we go back to the previous position, whenever a material is guarded by a higher value piece that can be potentially harassed, I like to call that material a pseudo-defended material, since if trades ever happen on that material, the recaptured piece can get harassed. The most common sacrifice, the Greek gift, is a perfect example to illustrate this point. After the move e5 to chase the knight away, you can see that this pawn on g7 and the pawn on h7 are both only guarded by black's king. And we can take advantage of this pawn on h7 because our bishop is eyeing on that pawn. So after bishop takes h7, king takes h7, we get to harass this king by playing the move knight to g5. And after the king goes back, we have successfully neutralized black's control over the h7 square, and we can take advantage of it by playing the move queen to h5. And since mate on h7 is threatened, black has nothing else to do than giving up his queen, and thus white is winning. Let's take a look at another example. In this position, this pawn on h2 and this bishop on the g2 square are both only guarded by white's king, and thus they are all pseudo-defended. And since this pawn is pseudo-defended, this pawn on g3 is also kind of weak. So I think it's already fair enough to consider the move rook takes h2. And after the move king takes h2, knight to g4, and bishop takes g3, we're both threatening white's rook and to bring our queen towards the h4 square to go for a mate threat. So black is completely winning. The game continues with rook to e2, queen to h4, knight to f1, but we just have bishop to f2 check. And white's rook needs to take, but we just bring our queen to the b2 square. And since this rook on a1 is threatened, and we're threatening to fork the king and the queen, white is losing material, so he decides to resign. Again, it's vital to know that trading on pseudo-defended material gives you tempo and weakened squares. Only when you can take advantage on both the tempo and the square, the attack can be successful. And in this position, what materials are pseudo-defended? Well, it's obviously this bishop and this pawn. Black played the move f6, hoping to chase our knight away, but of course we're not going back with our knight, we sacrificed our pony. And since we're threatening to get our queen to h5 to control h7 and h8 square, black cannot afford this, so he played the move bishop to e8, but still this move loses a tempo. And we decide to utilize this tempo by sacrificing another material. And after rook takes g7, the king has to take, but as you can see, this rook is now only guarded by black's king, so it is also pseudo-defended. We decide to utilize it and get our bishop into the game. And after king to h7, we brought our queen in, and since rook to g1, queen to g4, and queen to g7 are all threatened, black decides to resign this game. So, if you would like to develop your tactical playing style, pay attention to pseudo-defended materials, and it will reward you with a brilliant attack.